Give a big round of applause for first-timer Pamela.
Hey, I'm really nervous. Thanks. All right, so in May 2011, I was in Buenos Aires, Argentina. I was taking a class called DBI as part of my MBA, and DBI stands for Doing Business In, and it's a 2-week international exchange program, so I was taking classes at the University of Palmero. As part of the curriculum, they organized a day trip out to a ranchero, which offered a lot of different extracurricular activities. So it ranged from tennis, hiking, fishing, driving ranges, horseback riding, anything you could pretty much imagine you were able to do at this ranch. And I decided, me being an avid golf player, that I would at first try to check out the driving range. So I went. And the reason why I'm telling you this part of the story, because it's going to explain why something happened later on. So I'm at the driving range, and the first thing they do is hand me a 7-iron. It is rusty. The handle has completely unraveled. I mean, this thing was disgusting. Then they handed me a bucket of balls, and these balls were cracked, scuffed, covered in mud. I mean, these balls have been through hell and back. But none of these stopped me. I went to the driving range, but what happened next kind of floored me a little bit. So I get there, and I realized that there was no cart that went around and brought the balls back at the end. Like, you were to hit the ball, go and fetch the balls, like Easter egg hunt style, and then bring them back so the person next can hit their balls. What the fuck? So again, these are all red flags, but, you know, ignoring them all, I decided to try the next activity, which was horseback riding. So I get there, and there is an attendant, and, you know, alarm bells should have been ringing in my head, but they really weren't, because I was not being rational. They did not give me a helmet. They did not make me sign any sort of waivers. The saddle was really just a furry piece of cloth that was draped over the horse's back. And then when I asked whether there'd be a guide accompanying me on my trip, or whether there's a trail I should be following, I was told that, don't worry, the horses know where they're going. Again, I should have just called it quits and, you know, went back to the lodge, but against my better and smarter self, I decided to get on that horse. The attendant slapped the horse's ass, and we were off. At first, it was a great pace for me. The horse stopped every 30 feet or so to chew on some grass, to chew on some flowers, and, you know, I felt pretty lucky to have such a lazy horse. And, you know, pretty soon I actually started to relax and even enjoy myself, but that did not last very long. So something, and to this day I don't know what it was, spooked my horse. And it must have been something incredibly horrifying, like an ant or a leaf. Like, I don't know what it was, but my horse took off running full speed. And I hung on for as long as I could. It felt like 10 minutes, but I think it was probably like 5 seconds. And again, I was slipping off I started slipping off the left side of the horse. And again, I think it's because I didn't have a proper saddle. I hit the ground, landed on my back. My head hit the back of my head hit the trail. The next few hours were kind of blurry. I was rushed to the hospital, where nobody spoke English, of course. I was given lots of x-rays, CAT scans. I had to stay overnight. I mean, it was by far the most terrifying moment of my life. I was scraped, I was bruised. I had, you know, like cuts all over my body, but the doctors assured me I'd be okay. I had a bruise actually from the whiplash of hitting the ground, and it started from behind my ear and it came all the way down to underneath my chin. And it was difficult to walk, but, you know, the next day I was dismissed from the hospital. Again, the doctors told me I'd be fine. So a few weeks later, I'm back in New York, and I was telling my friend this story. So by the way, this bruise that was along my neck had faded a little bit, but in patchy ways. So it looked like I just had a bunch of hickeys that started from behind my ears and went down to my throat. You know, I was 27. Like, what 27-year-old gets hickeys anymore? So I'm at the bar, and my friend asked me how my trip was, and I started telling them this story. And he asked to see the bump on the back of my head. So immediately after the fall, the bump was probably the size of half a grapefruit. And it was soft and it was mushy. And I swear to God that there was a crack in my skull from which my brain was leaking out of slowly. And the only thing keeping my brain inside, here was my scalp. But as the doctors had assured me, the bump slowly started reducing in size, and at the time that I was at this bar in New York, it was probably the size of like a golf ball, which to me was huge improvement. So I turned around, I showed him the bump, and he goes, "Pam, your bump is bald." I'm like, "What do you mean?" So he took a picture with my phone and showed me, and sure enough, it was a size of, I guess, a Hong Kong $5 coin, now that I live in Hong Kong. And he was right, it was completely bald. It looked like I got into a cat fight and JWoww pulled my hair out. I was advised to go see a dermatologist, which I did. She wanted me to take cortisone shots into my scalp. I don't know how many of you ever had shots administered to your scalp, but it really hurt. But the point was that the cortisone would alleviate the swelling that was putting pressure against my hair follicles so that eventually my hair follicles would have enough, room to grow again. So she did that about 6 or 7 times. And then she told me that I needed to start using men's extra strength Rogaine. I'm 27 and female. Why am I using Rogaine? But I was terrified that this bald spot was going to continue to spread and I'd be bald before I knew it, like completely bald, Bruce Willis bald. So I did as I was told. And every day for twice a day, I stood there. I would shake the bottle, squeeze it onto my hand, put it on my bald spot. But the problem was, what do I do when I'm sleeping, right? This is the back of my head. I was so afraid that I would accidentally, in the middle of the night, rub my head against my pillow, and then there'd be Rogaine on my pillow, and then I'd sleep on it, and then my face would be in it, and then I'd wake up the next morning with a mustache or a unibrow. I was so terrified of all this stuff because I didn't know what Rogaine did. So I slept face down for a month. But as you can see, my hair has recovered, and I guess the only thing I learned from my DBI class in Argentina was that I should stay far away from horses.